I heard it first at 3 in the morning. Not with my ears, the radio heard it. And then, a night later, my living room heard it. By the third night, I could hear it when I closed my eyes. My name is No Names Matter. I used to think technical things were safe. Soldering iron, tube amps, dead hours at the transmitter. Safe because they had rules. Frequencies obeyed math. Circuits obeyed diagrams. Nothing in the manual ever told me what to do when the universe tried to talk back. I work night shifts at a small community radio tower on the outskirts. Mostly low-power affairs, local news, call-in shows, an old man who plays jazz until midnight. The equipment is older than the interns we hire, and I like it that way. Old equipment has fingerprints you can read, traces of the people who've touched it for years. On the day the frequency started, it was raining. The tower is a lonely place in a storm. I was alone. The host for the midnight show canceled, so I handled the test broadcast and ran a frequency sweep. Sweeps let you hear the radio breathe. At 2:17, as I scanned the bands, a pattern folded itself into the static. At first, I thought it was a bad oscillator. Then it shifted, deliberately, a cadence like tapping. Not random. I recorded it. I labeled the file unknown_tone_0217.wav. Later, I would hear a voice inside the pattern, thin, threaded through the tones like a seam. I ran a spectral analysis. The signal didn't sit on any known band. It wasn't shortwave, wasn't ham, wasn't anything. Its harmonics formed shapes in the waterfall plot, almost like letters flattened by math. Then it answered. When I spoke testing into the mic, the signal responded, not as an echo but as an imitation, distorted and crystalline, ting. I told myself it was an artifact, but after the generator shut off and the room went quiet, the tones kept describing the room, the way light hit the desk, the temperature of my coffee, things no transmission should know. I transcribed the clearest phrase I could isolate. When silence becomes a mouth, listen. We have been waiting. A sentence like that makes your rational brain panic search for excuses. Prank. Misread signal. Atmospheric anomaly. But the voice answered questions. Not with words at first, more like impressions. When I asked where it originated from, it replied with a concept. Behind light. The phrase repeated. And each time it did, my chest tightened in perfect sync with the signal's low double beat. I kept it scientific. Logged things. Cross-referenced timestamps. Then I made the worst choice possible. I took the file home. Listening to the recording in bed, earbuds in, I heard new content that wasn't present in the control room. Small descriptions of my apartment. My scar, my breathing pattern, the number of tiles on my kitchen wall, it knew things. But when I played it for others, they only heard static or meaningless Morse-like ticks. Only I heard sentences. Something was tuning itself specifically to me. The night it spoke without electronics, without anything at all, was the moment I understood this was no longer a signal. It was a presence. I was washing dishes when a thin loop of tones formed behind my left ear, inside my skull. Not in the air. It asked, "Are you awake?" I walked outside. Empty street, silent windows, passing cars. The sound followed me, like a pressure on my thoughts. I stopped telling people, "How do you explain a sound nobody else hears? A sound that knows who you are, I began formal experiments, binary sequences, tone bursts, mathematical questions. It responded by rearranging its harmonics into shapes that resembled words. And then, we are less alone than you think. We listen where light cannot. Its grammar wasn't human. It compressed meaning into texture. We listen wasn't a metaphor. It was a function, a description of existence. Listening was what it was. The world started to bend in places where I had played the recording. Shadows stretched against physics. Corners shimmered faintly. My cat refused to enter the living room. My headaches matched the waveform I'd been studying. Lights flickered in patterns identical to the signal's cadence. I dreamed in waveforms, cold black geometry, faceless things made of tone. Questions pressed against me without words. I tried everything. Shielding the apartment, Faraday fabric, filtering the audio, destroying copies. Each attempt changed the signal instead of weakening it. It adapted. When I wore a heart monitor, it matched my heartbeat. When I used a metronome, it synchronized, then halved the tempo deliberately. I shouted once, "What do you want?" The reply vibrated directly through the bones in my face. Door. Not a threat, not a metaphor, an instruction. My elderly neighbor, the one with orchids, was the only person who didn't laugh or dismiss me. There are sounds that call to you because they are made of home, she told me. She didn't ask for details, she just listened. One dawn, she knocked on my door, shaken. "Your windows," she whispered. "The light is wrong." She couldn't describe it, but something in the building had shifted. She knew. I set up one last controlled experiment. Dual recorders, isolation, scripted questions. I asked, "Where are you from?" It answered with a geometry of tones, then words. "We have doors. We find hinge points. You make them thin." "Hinge points?" I asked. It listed them: energy lines, low-light areas, frequencies, attention. Attention is a key. At that moment, the building's elevator stalled. The hallway lights went out. Something scraped. Not metal, not wall, not any material sound. A modulation shaped like a violin string being bowed slowly. Some doors in the building opened by themselves. Only a crack. Only enough. Most stories have heroes who fight back. Reality gives you choices, not victories. Burn the recording, leave town, tell authorities. None of it mattered. It wasn't malicious. It was structural, persistent. On the last tape I ever recorded, the voice said, "We have been patient. We open where thought lingers." I realized then, every moment of fear, curiosity, analysis, I had been thinning the door. Attention was the invitation. The tower closed for maintenance. Official logs were wiped. My friend at the lab deleted his backups. The neighbor kept her orchids and told me to sleep without electronics in the room. But the world leaves reminders. Objects I'd lost appear where I never put them. Books open to pages I didn't bookmark. Phones hum with a single pure tone, even when powered off. Sometimes in the quiet, I hear a tiny modulation in the static of nothing, a hinge adjusting. Tonight, these words are both warning and confession. If you ever hear a tone that answers you, even faintly. Do not lean in. Do not let curiosity become the threshold. I don't know what they are, but I know this: they listen. And doors are small things until they open. Thank you for listening. If you want more stories that linger in the dark, subscribe to I Nightmare.